It's time to lock in. Here we are in March of 2024, which many people are falsely calling the middle of the bear market. They are under the assumption that we still have another 6 or 7 months and that we're going to bottom, Bitcoin's going to bottom in the fourth quarter of 2026. And there's a problem with that. And that is, okay, you guys, if you've been browsing X, you've probably seen this fractal, which I'm going to put on the screen right now. And that's the 2022 fractal. This thing is so unbelievably flawed, and you can see that we've already started to deviate from it. It's a no-brainer that we would deviate from this thing and we would not follow it perfectly. And why is that? Well, you've got to understand the difference between 2022 and 2026 is quite significant when we're defining the levels of support. In 2022, when Bitcoin lost $30,000, its $30,000 support level, there was no support. Because remember, all right, back in 2020, when Bitcoin crossed its previous all-time high, in 2020, it went from $20,000 to $42,000. I believe it was within a matter of 21 days. Bitcoin's price more than doubled in 21 days. Now, it did spend after that sometime in the 30s, but there was barely any time where we saw Bitcoin between $20,000 and $30,000. There was no support built up, no liquidity built up. And so when we lost that $30,000 floor, it was inevitable that we would go back down to $20,000. And then in 2026, what do we have with the levels of support that we're at? We actually have a lot of liquidity built up between $50,000 and $70,000. That's what we saw during that really grueling grind in 2024 from March to, I want to say, October of 2024, where Bitcoin continued to put in a series of lower lows between $50,000 and $70,000 and then bottomed out at $48,000 on August 5th of 2024, and then eventually rallied to get to its new all-time high. The idea that Bitcoin would do exactly what it did in 2022, it's the kind of beginner mistake. It's a mistake that only beginners would make. And I don't even know if that's true. I've seen a lot of people who are not beginners making that same mistake. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. And you can see from this chart, we have broken through the fractal, because if we were following along with this fractal, Bitcoin would be deep into the 50s right now and possibly even in the 40s. And so, okay, if we're going to go by fractals, how about I submit to you a fractal that would induce a lot of hopium? Now, am I endorsing this? Do I believe that this is going to happen? I don't think the original poster of this fractal believes that this is going to happen. But if you're just going to blindly believe in fractals, why not believe in one that this actually makes a little bit more sense? Okay, here is a post from somebody named Trader JB on X. His username is at Trader JBX. It is a 2023 and 2026 fractal, and you can see a lot of similarities between 2023 and 2026. If we were to follow along with this fractal, well, where would Bitcoin be? Here's some interesting things. Bitcoin would be over $90,000 before the end of March. So less than 2 weeks, it would be over $110,000 by May. Now, again, do I believe that this is going to happen? No. But if you were to ask me if it was between one or the other, which one I thought was more likely, I would tell you that the 2023 fractal makes more sense than the 2026 fractal for all the reasons that I laid out. So what's the point with this? The point is, I've made a video, I've talked about this before. There are no rules in crypto. We don't have to follow the same patterns that we followed before. And it's a matter of buying low and selling high. You've got to buy low and sell high. I see Bitcoin, it's not there now, unfortunately, but if you were to see Bitcoin under its previous cycle peak, that's just generally a time to buy low. You see Ethereum under $2,000. Ethereum spent lots of time under $2,000. That is generally a time to buy. I know that the greed works both ways. I know that a lot of you would have preferred to buy Ethereum at a lower price, and maybe you will, maybe you won't. But you've got to do away with that and just think logically. It's the same mistake that people make every bear market. They want to buy lower. They think they can buy lower, and no one ever buys the exact bottom, but they try. Okay, they try really hard to buy the exact bottom, and they end up missing out big time. Again, I remember in 2022, I remember going live and people telling me they were waiting for $12,000 Bitcoin or $10,000 Bitcoin. And I was sitting here and I was thinking, okay, we spent a long time. We spent 50 days at the end of 2022 with Bitcoin under $17,000, and people weren't willing to buy. What were the chances, in your head at least, at the end of 2022 that Bitcoin would cross its $69,000 peak? I think a lot of you would have said, 95%, 98%, maybe some of you would have said 100%. So you're telling me that you at that time weren't willing to buy, if you said 100%, you weren't willing to buy a guaranteed 4.5x, that you had to wait for a lower price. It's irrational, and people make the same mistake every time. We could be at a point where the most painful thing about 2026 is, how do I say this, is that you had time to buy and you didn't. And who knows how long this clock is ticking. Most people are thinking months. It might not be months. It might be weeks. It might be days. Honestly, it might be hours. Probably not hours, but that's just the point of this, is like bear market equals buy, bull market equals sell. And for some reason in our heads, we have that flipped, and we need to be done with that forever.